best-selling book, The Henna Artist. Welcome, Alka.
Thank you so much, Laura.
I want to show you your Romanian cover.
It looks gorgeous.
Yes, it does. It's the same. I see it behind you. I see the original cover behind you. It was a lovely, lovely read. I actually enjoy books about the Indian cultures a lot. I used to read a book like this when I was a child. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name, but it was about an Indian child. And I remained with a fondness for this culture. So a lot of questions will be, related to the Indian culture. But first of all, I know the novel is a debut novel and it skyrocketed. It was a bestseller. And I wanted to ask you, what would you say are 3 things that helped your book become such a success?
I think that I call them the magic of the 3 Ps. Passion. I had an intention for this novel that was very clear to me, and that was to reimagine a life for my mother, a life that she did not actually get to live, but that I could create in fiction that would allow her to have a more independent life. So passion, definitely. The second was perseverance. It took me 10 years to get this novel into the hands of readers. And there were so many times when I thought, I am probably never going to finish this novel. I'm probably never going to get it published. Maybe I'm not meant to be a writer. Maybe I'm not meant to write this novel about my mother. And I just had to pick myself up over and over again and say, okay, let's get started again. Okay, let's start editing again. Okay, let's see who else can help us get to the finish line. So perseverance. And then the very third one is patience. I had to learn patience with myself. And I have to say that my husband has really contributed greatly to number 3. I would get so impatient with myself. Like, why can I not just get this novel ready to be in publishers' hands now? Why can I not just learn how to write a compelling scene immediately? Why can I not, make this that best-selling novel that I want it to be right now? Well, it's because, my husband said, you have to be patient with yourself. You cannot just overnight become a famous ballerina. You can't overnight, create a beautiful garden. It takes time, it takes trial and error, and it does take a lot of revision to make a novel. So those 3 things, I think, are what really stood me in good stead during all of these years: passion, perseverance, and patience.
We really have to keep that in mind because it's a very important principle in life. You said that your husband supported you. The book is all about women who want to become independent in a period where India was not ready yet to let women be independent. So would you say that things have changed in India? I know you live in the US, obviously. But
yes,
yeah.
But Laura, I did go to India so many times while I was writing the novel. I went with my mother and I saw India through her eyes. And I wrote a lot about Jaipur while we were in Jaipur, staying at my brother's condominium. And, I think that what I found was that the status of women and their agency in life is dependent on their socioeconomic status still to this day. So what happens is that in the lower socioeconomic classes, where the women and girls are in a rural area or in a village, that is where they have the least agency. That is where they will be married at a young age. Their partners will be selected for them. They will have children at a young age and probably very little notion of education. They will be taken out of school in order to create families. Now, in the middle classes in India, that's where we see the most change. In the middle classes, which have grown so much in the last 20 or 30 years, that is where we see a lot of parents who have sent both their girls and their boys to school, to college, to higher education. the girls are getting their masters, their PhDs. And so they are able to now take care of themselves financially in a way that women were not able to before. Certainly my mother, who was taken out of college at 18 to be arranged in a marriage to my father, never had the option of going back. But the women of today in India, in these middle classes, have a voice, and they are able to say to their parents, I don't want to get married until I have my master's, or I may never be married, or I have found a boy in college who is not from our caste or from our class, but I like him and I want to marry him, and we will make a good life together because we are both going to be educated and both have good earning power. So there is more negotiation that is happening between women and their families in those middle classes that never used to happen before. The other day, I was in a book group with professional Indian women who live in India. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're engineers. And one of the things they told me that I found so surprising, and pleasantly so, is that women now, young women who are well educated and know that they are going to have an excellent earning income for the rest of their life, they are asking for prenup agreements with their husbands.
It's a good thing that the law allows it.
Yes, it's an amazing thing. And also their families, the women's families, are able to say to the male, to the groom's families, you know what, we are not going to give you a dowry. The dowry was meant to keep a woman at home, and it was meant to compensate the groom's family for the fact that they were going to take care of this daughter for the rest of their life. So if a woman is able to sustain herself financially, there is no reason for her to expect a dowry or to expect the man to take care of her. And so in many cases now, the families of these young girls are able to say, we're not giving you a dowry. Our girl is going to be able to earn probably more than your boy is, and there's no reason for us to give a dowry. And I am so pleased about this, Laura, because I really feel that if we can eliminate the dowry system, we can also eliminate some of the gender bias in India. The bias that says that boys are more valuable than girls. The bias that says that if a family has a boy born in it, then we congratulate them. But if there is a girl who is born, then we say, oh, I'm so sorry that you had a girl.
I can't believe
Yes, it's the same bias that says that girls have to be more careful than boys, always, 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 when they move around, when they are flirting with somebody. It's the girls that have to watch out for themselves, not the boys. And so I feel that eliminating a dowry system will go a long ways towards gender equity in India.
That's fantastic. And it's amazing that you have these views and that you share them with your readers, because when they have a spokesperson such as yourself, you may reach a larger audience, and hopefully one day your dream will come true.
Well, Laura, this is so fascinating. I had never expected the henna artist to become as big of a bestseller as it has. And it is being translated into 23 languages, which says to me that the plight of the women in the henna artist, this concept that every woman deserves agency in this world, is a much larger concept that transcends boundaries, culture, countries. All of these women in other countries are writing to me and saying, I understand completely what the women in the henna artists are going through. This could have been my life. This was my mother's life. This was my grandmother's life. I understand what this is. And we still have a lot of work to do as women to conquer the gender biases that exist in this world.
So you would say that you not only gave a voice to Indian women, you gave a voice to women all over the world.
Oh, I really hope so. And I'm just so pleased about that, because what I feel I am doing is serving as a megaphone for what my mother really believed in and what my mother did not get to do. And so, you know, it's so interesting. I wrote this book sort of to celebrate my mother in a way that I really just couldn't celebrate her while she was alive. I just thought, I don't know how to change my mother's life, and I can't. We can't change anybody else's life. What else can we do? And I thought I could make this character who gets to escape her marriage and then to navigate the patriarchy on her own terms. And she does it so cleverly that she's able to build a house of her own, that she's able to be very successful in her own business. But she does it also accepting the fact that she has to navigate those rules that have already been set up by society. She's not a trailblazer in the most radical sense, but she is a trailblazer in her own time period. So I wanted to celebrate my mother as this woman who could have done all of these things if she had been allowed. So I am just so honored by all of the women who are responding to this book and men who are responding to this book. I actually get emails from men who say, I have not picked up a novel in many, many, many years. I read primarily nonfiction, which is what men generally read. But I read The Henna Artist because I saw an article in a newspaper, in a magazine, whatever. And I read The Henna Artist. And I have to tell you that it makes me want to pick up novels again, because in addition to writing about women in The Henna Artist, I am writing about India's history. I am weaving in the traditions of India, the domination by the British and how it impacted Indians. I'm weaving in classism, colorism, casteism. I'm talking about all of these things at the same time that we are going through the story of all of these women. So I wanted to make sure that we had the strong fabric of what is happening in India at the time and how India came to be how it was after independence. But I didn't want to hit anybody over the head with all of this history. I wanted to weave it in very organically so people understand the Indian culture a little bit more than they do currently.
Since you mentioned men, let's talk about the men in The Henna Artist. We have the husband. We also have Lakshmi's benefactor. And what I wanted to ask about one particular character, I'm trying not to give away, anything, not to do any spoilers. Do you think people in real life can redeem themselves after a while, after they've done really bad things?
Yes, I do. I think that people can redeem themselves. And I think that the only way that they redeem themselves is if they allow themselves to go inward and to really explore why they do the things that they do. This is so important, I think, for all of us to realize maybe, in fact, we are all imperfect. We all have good in us. We all have bad in us. And we all have the ability to temper our behavior to be mostly good or mostly bad. And I think that that ability to temper ourselves is always there. But as we become more fully aware, as we become self-actualized, as we realize that we do have the ability to decide for ourselves which direction we are going to go in, whether good or bad or ugly, I think that we do make a choice. And at that point, there is a change that happens in us. There is this flowering of the person that we can actually be that will benefit society. I do believe that that happens.
Yeah, yes. You have many characters that do bad things, but also do good things. So your characters are not extensively bad or extensively good. And that's something that I really appreciated in the book, because it's more realistic than...
Yeah. And Laura, whenever I read, and of course, every author, I think, starts out being a reader. We read because maybe we're too shy, like I was. I was too shy. It was easier for me to bury my nose in a book than to be talking to people. And I think that when we read, the characters that we are always drawn to are the imperfect characters, the ones who learn through the course of the story how to be a better person, how to manage some of the more difficult problems in their life, how to manage obstacles. I know that I learned from these fictional characters in the books that I was reading as I was growing up. And so I think I maybe unconsciously wanted to create a story that would give women also that kind of feeling like, oh, I can change my life too. Oh, maybe I can handle some of the obstacles that Lakshmi faces in the same way that she's facing them. Maybe I can be more elegant in my choices. So these are things that I think I also wanted to empower the reader with in the same way that I had been empowered by novels that I had read as a child.
One of my favorite characters was Kanta. She was really caught between all the new tradition and modernism, and that's why she made some questionable choices. Not really bad, but still. Do you think that Indian women are still trapped between traditions and modernism?
I think that they are both trapped and liberated by the old and the new. So, for example, in India, when I go to visit, I see women walking to the temples and saying their prayers, ringing the temple bell, bringing the flowers to the gods or goddesses that they pray to. At the same time, this same woman goes to work in a doctor's office, and she is the doctor. So there are wonderful ways in which women of India have incorporated both the East and the West, both the old and the new. But I also think that some of these same traditions, some of these same contradictions between old and new do trap them in a place where they have to decide for themselves how their sons and daughters will be raised. Are they going to be raised largely in one tradition or another? And as the internet is opening up the world, opening up every young person in every culture to what is happening all around us in the world, these women have a lot more vigilance. They have a lot more to handle as far as what their young people are learning, what they are being exposed to. And they have, I think, a very difficult road ahead of them to decide how much of the new they want their children to incorporate and how much of the old they want to make sure they cling to. I think it's a very difficult decision for most women, but I do think that Indian women handle it with more elegance and I think with more perseverance than most. Yeah, I think that they see in the new world, in the more Western world, they see the choices their daughters can have that are far more independent and free than the choices they got to have. And it was the same with my mother. When we came to the United States in 1967 as immigrants, my mother looked around and she realized that women had a voice and that children had a voice and that maybe she could raise me, her only daughter, to have all of those choices that she didn't get to have. And I think that was her rebellion. That was her way of making sure that she passed on not only her traditional, ways of cooking and taking care of herself and taking care of the family, but also the new ways that women can be with more of an independent voice, with more control over their lives. And so she, I think in me, she said, okay, I only have this one girl and I can raise her to be much more modern. She is always going to have our traditions with her in her DNA, because, you know, you cannot get rid of something that you were raised in. You know, the tradition you were raised in is always going to be with you, but I can make sure that she grows up to be far freer than I ever was.
So how much did you accept American culture into your home back then?
Well, so as a young immigrant to America, I faced a lot of questions that I couldn't answer. Generally, whenever I was in school, I came here at the age of 9. And when I was in school, I was usually the only brown-skinned person in class. And so I stood out. I was different. Everybody wanted to know where I was from. Oh, I'm from India. Oh, so what tribe of Indian are you? They thought I was American Indian tribe, and I didn't know what they were talking about. Then they would ask me things like, you know, do you worship cows? And I thought, well, I don't worship cows. Where did they get the idea that I worship cows? You know, and then I would realize as I opened up my history book that there was a sacred cow picture in the history book, and that was their vision of what India was all about. There were also photographs of very poor and starving people on the streets of India. And I thought, oh, that is their vision of what India is about. But it wasn't my vision of what India was about. You know, I come from a middle-class family, so we had a lot of privileges. But also, I was a kid, and I grew up knowing rich and poor and good and bad and everything all at once. As a kid, you don't place value judgments on any of that. It's just the way you're raised. So I became so self-conscious about being Indian because I knew that all the questions they were asking me were coming from a place of negativity, that India was an underdeveloped, negative, illiterate, dirty, poor place.
That must have been hard for you.
Yes, it was very hard. And so I thought, you know what? I think I just need to be American. I just need to convert myself into an American. I will dress American. I will talk American. I will eat American. I will sound American. I don't even want to be Indian because I don't want to come from the culture that they all think I come from. And so for years and years and years, I disavowed my heritage because I just wouldn't talk about it. I didn't want to know anything about it. I didn't want to admit to people that I liked Indian food, although it still was my favorite food. And so it wasn't until I started traveling with my mother to India that I would see India through her eyes, and I would remember India through my memory. And I would say, oh, this is the India I remember. I remember the marigold garlands being threaded everywhere. I remember the women walking through the temples, and you can smell the sandalwood incense always coming from the temples. I remember the way that we cook this Indian food with all of these spices, not just because they flavor the food well, but because they are so good for our bodies. So I like Indian food, not just because it tastes good, but because I know that it's beneficial for my bones and my skin and my lymphatic system and my digestive system. So it wasn't until I was traveling with my mom that I gained more of an appreciation of my heritage and started looking into the history of my India. And I realized that the reason that Americans in 1967 thought that India was poor and dirty is because that is how the British had left India. In over the 200 years that they dominated India, they had destroyed so many of India's factories and industries that India was known for throughout the world. India was actually a wealthy country at the time that the British came. And India had about 23% of their goods were exported to the outside world. By the time the British left, they had destroyed so many industries, including the textile industry that India is known for, very fine silk, very fine muslin, you know, those beautiful saris that everyone, embroiders and block prints and so on. The British broke the thumbs of the weavers so they could no longer make that cloth because the British wanted to sell their own cloth from their Victorian textile mills that they had been building. So the British had destroyed so many industries that India was bereft and poor by the time the British left. India's export was -4. at the time that they left. So these kinds of historical markers that I began to learn about India gave me a profound sense of how resilient the Indian people are, and how, you know, after 200 years of British domination and the destruction of so many of their wealthy industries, the Indians didn't say, well, we are just going to die now, you know, we're just going to lay down and die. They said, we have to rebuild. We have to retrain our workers. We have to make sure that we are back into the fold of the world the way we used to be. We have to become a major force in society. And today, economically, India is one of the major forces in society, just 70 years after independence, which I think is so amazing.
It is. Food, spices, and herbal remedies are an important part of your book. I enjoy that a lot. Do you cook Indian dishes? Do you know herbal remedies? Do you use them for yourself?
The herbal remedies that I put into the book, half of them I already knew, because that was the way that all Indian kids are raised. If you have a stomach upset, your mother will say, choose some fennel seeds. If you, you know, have some kind of inflammation, let's say you have a cut or a bruise, your mother will make you a little poultice of turmeric powder and some coconut oil and put it right on the cut. And it heals itself, because turmeric is an anti-inflammatory and coconut oil conditions your skin. So these are things that I just know because this is the way I was raised. I remember, I think every Saturday or Sunday, my mother would put coconut oil in her hair and in my hair, because that was a way to condition our hair. So half then of the herbal remedies I put in here, including the cotton root bark that is meant to help women eliminate an unwanted pregnancy. Those are things that I actually had to research. And I had to sort of, you know, do a lot of research on what kind of herbal remedies women were using for very specific ailments like that. So yeah, it was kind of half and half. And yes, I cook, I love to cook with cumin seeds and garlic and onions and turmeric and garam masala and peppercorns. And every morning I have chai. The spices that we use in chai, the cardamom, the cinnamon, the black peppercorns, and the cloves are all very calming spices. So you want to start your day off with something hot and calming, and that will cool you down for the rest of the day. So yeah, so that, yeah, so I practice a lot of what I wrote in the Henna Artist.
I drink turmeric latte in the morning.
Oh, yay! Have you found any difference at all, Laura? Have you found any difference in the way you feel, or, you know,
I didn't drink coffee before. I'm not a coffee drinker. So anyway, I would drink either tea or turmeric latte. So I enjoy it. I actually drink it for the taste, because I like the taste.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I haven't been that much in touch with myself so as to notice anything different, but I enjoy it and it's my moment. So
excellent.
Are you ever worried that someone reading your book could take literally the recipe for the cotton bark concoction?
No, because it is a work of fiction, and we do always, as authors, I think, you know, we take a lot of creative license in writing fiction. So if I had labeled this a memoir, I might be worried. If I had labeled this a biography of my mother, I might be worried. But this is, you know, this is a piece of fiction, and people will try all kinds of things, you know, because they're, you know, whatever they're going through, they need to try something. Now, here's an interesting fact. When I was researching ways in which women have eliminated their pregnancies, I found that over the centuries and over the different cultures, women have used all kinds of herbal remedies. There was always a medicine woman in a local village who would know, or a woman in a back street of a city who just knew what to do, what you should ingest, how you should eliminate the pregnancy. Because let's face it, women are the ones who are faced with this problem. Once they have sex and it's unprotected, they are liable to get pregnant. There's a very good chance that they will get pregnant. And they are then left with the care and feeding of this baby. So many women who have been subject to rape or incest or extramarital sex or premarital sex are left with this decision. They have often gone to these medicine women, these back alley people, to say, okay, what can I take? What is the herbal remedy that I should take? And they're usually in the form of these bitter herbs that are turned into teas that will, that the woman will drink, and then eventually, the fetus will come out.
Lakshmi had learned everything from her mother-in-law. This character, who is not present in the book, is very surprising. I wouldn't say that India's mother-in-laws, moms of boys, are usually presented in a very good manner. I mean, most soap operas, Indian soap operas or other books, mother-in-laws are not very nice persons. But this mother-in-law, she was amazing. She welcomed Lakshmi into her house, and she taught her how to protect herself and how to, she gave her the knowledge she needed in order to save herself. What made you create this character like this?
I had a couple of stereotypes that I really wanted to challenge in this book. And I think the stereotype of the evil mother-in-law is something that pervades Indian movies, soap operas. I remember one time when we were in Jaipur, my mother was watching these soap operas, and I was watching them with her for a while. And I said, Mom, how can you stand it? All these mother-in-laws are so evil, and they're trying to make life so difficult for their daughter-in-laws. And my mom said, oh, honey, it's just a drama. But I do think that there is an insidious nature to movies, to TV shows, to any kind of portrayal of a mother-in-law, or a persistent portrayal of a character that does invade our senses and make us feel like that is the way those people are. So I wanted to challenge that notion. I have a lovely mother-in-law, and my husband had a lovely mother-in-law in my mother. She loved him. She had such a great time with him. She used to laugh, and, they used to crack jokes together and everything. So I think that this is a stereotype of the evil mother-in-law that is long overdue for correction. So I wanted to challenge that notion and have a mother-in-law who understood what it was to be a daughter-in-law in a house and, not have kind people around her. So she makes sure that she is kind to her daughter-in-law. She also finds in Lakshmi maybe a daughter that she didn't get to have, a daughter who is eager to learn new things and eager to be a contributing member of the household. I also wanted to challenge this other stereotype in my book, which was the notion of Hindus and Muslims not getting along. In India, there are 200 million Muslims, something like that, and the population is 1.4 billion. But the only things that the rest of the world ever hears about the Hindu-Muslim relationship is about conflict, because that's what the media will cover. Anytime there's a conflict, that's all anybody around the world hears about. But in reality, we have Hindus and Muslims who live side by side, who celebrate festivals together, who run businesses together, own businesses together, make movies together. And so I wanted to challenge that stereotype by making Malik a Muslim and Lakshmi a Hindu, and they have a very good and symbiotic and positive and loyal relationship. So I wanted to break those two stereotypes, in addition to the stereotype of the woman who cannot leave her marriage, who cannot, build a business of her own. So I think those are maybe three stereotypes that I wanted to tackle in the book, and they have come as a surprise to a lot of people.
Yes, indeed. You mentioned Malik. I know he's a character in your next book. Is it The Secret Keeper of Jaipur?
Yes, The Secret Keeper of Jaipur is all about Malik as a 20-year-old young man. So now he has had this formal education that was paid for by Samir Singh. He dresses, in these fine Oxford cotton shirts. He also has a nice haircut and he wears closed-toed shoes, which, as you remember in the henna artist, he was always wearing these rubber slippers and borrowing other people's rubber slippers that he stole. So now he's become a proper gentleman, a pakka saab, as they say in Hindi. And so he has gone down to Jaipur doing an apprenticeship at the Jaipur Palace. He is working again with Manu. And if you remember, Manu and Kantha are married. Manu is the palace director of facilities for the palace. So he is employed by the Maharanis to make sure that all of the building investments that they are making, the cinema house they're building, the hotel they're building, things like that, he is managing all of that. He hires the contractors. Of course, the famous contractor in Rajasthan at this time is Singh Sharma, which was formed at the end of the henna artist. So Singh and Sharma come together. Ravi and Sheila are married. They, have a family of their own. Malik meets all of these people again. He meets up with the Maharanis again. He also, the talking parakeet also makes an appearance in the Secret Keeper. And then, of course, what starts happening is that as Malik gets more entrenched in the work, the day-to-day work of the Maharanis and the buildings that they're building, he realizes that there's some disturbing things going on. There's some secrets that are being kept from the Maharanis that are going to compromise Manu's job as well. And Malik always wants to protect those that he loves. So he is on a quest to figure out how he can reveal these secrets without harming anyone, but at the same time, making a correction that needs to be corrected in whatever's happening in Jaipur. He has to enlist Lakshmi's help back in Shimla. So she has to come and help him. And so, it is a little bit of a mystery about what's going on. And of course, we get to see Malik at his best. Malik also has a love interest now up in Shimla. And so that woman is upset with Lakshmi. Her name is Nimi, and she's upset with Lakshmi for having sent Malik away on this apprenticeship at the Jaipur Palace. And she is as formidable a character as Lakshmi is. So, we have tension, we have love, we have a mystery, and it was such a delight to write this book because I know the characters so well now, having worked with them for 10 years, making this book, The Henna Artist, that now when I write, when I wrote the sequel, it came so quickly and I totally understood what the story was. And I know exactly how these characters, the same characters, react in different situations. So this was really wonderful to write. And that comes out June 22nd, I believe. And then I'm writing now the third book in the trilogy, because as soon as I started writing Malik's book, I realized I have to have Radha's book too. So in the third book, Radha is 30 years old. She works as a perfumer in Paris. And one day,
Wow.
yes. She married a Frenchman who was traveling through the Himalayas. She went back to Paris with him. They have 2 little children, and she works in the perfume industry. And there's a knock on her door one night, and there is somebody that she hasn't seen in 18 years from the henna artist at her door. So that is book number 3, and that will end the trilogy.
Fantastic to look forward to. Unfortunately, our time has run out. So in the end, I would like to ask you if you can, make a short pitch for the Romanian reader to convince them to read The Henna Artist. I think that you are going to see yourself as one of the women in the henna artist. You're going to see your mother in the henna artist. You're going to see your aunt, your sister,
your daughter. You're going to see so many of the women in your life portrayed in the henna artist, because this is a book about women. This is a book about what women get to have as an agency, what they don't get to have, how much power they have in their relationships, how much power they don't have, and what happens to women when they don't have the power to determine their destiny. Where do they go? Whom do they take it out on? These are all questions that are explored in the henna artist, with women whom you will sympathize with women whom you will learn from, and women you will come to love. I hope that you will read the henna artist, because it is, I think it's good. It's a novel that's going to stay with you a long time, and these women will stay with you for a very long time as well. Artista Henna. Did I say that correctly, Laura?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to meet you. We had a fantastic talk. I will definitely remember a lot of the things you said. And hopefully sometimes, who knows, maybe for the Secret Keeper of Jaipur, we can meet in person.
Thank you so much. Namaste, everybody.
Namaste, Alka.